Okay, everyone, good morning or good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming to this webinar. In today's webinar, we're looking at how to improve fluency with reading progress in Teams for Education. And I'm delighted to be joined by Mr. Mike Tholfsen. And Mike is a group product manager at Microsoft Education, and he focuses on Teams for Education, Immersive Reader, Reading Progress, and OneNote Class Notebooks. He is passionate about inclusive education and has been regularly working with students and teachers around the world over the past 10 years to create products that improve student outcomes. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to you, Mike, in 1 second. So make a few announcements before we begin. First of all, this session will be recorded, and participation in this session indicates your consent to be recorded. Highlights of this recording will be shared to tiltal.org and facebook.com/group/tiltal. Camera phones and microphones are disabled for audience members, but questions for the speaker can be sent in the chat. Okay, so thank you very much, Mike, and I'd like to hand over to you now, if that's okay.
So I work on the education team, as indicated just a moment ago, and we're going to be talking about Reading Progress, which is a tool really focusing on reading fluency. And while I'll be showing some examples here of a fourth grade girl, Reading Progress actually is great with all sorts of languages and all sorts of ages. But in this example, you'll see a younger student, but it's being used with everywhere from first grade to higher education, world language learners all across the board. But it's really about reading fluency. And how can we help with reading fluency checks? So reading fluency is speed, accuracy, and expression. A lot of students don't like reading out loud. Actually, before the call, I was telling a story, my own life. Like when I was in high school and we were learning French, I hated reading out loud in front of the class because that's the only time my French teacher ever heard me read out loud was in front of the class, and I hated it. I can still remember how much I hated it, honestly. And the teacher in reading fluency checks will often have to check with a stopwatch or paper, pencil, what words are mispronounced, circling things, timing it. And if you're a world language teacher, you might not do it that way, but at the same time, how are you going to get a sense of how that student, what they sound like, even being able to watch them read can be really helpful. And it's just very time consuming. That's why people don't do it after a certain age, because teachers just don't have time to iterate back and forth like that. So we said, how can we help Mrs. Peterson let Crystal practice and others in the class practice more often and not have to go through this process every time? And how can we get data and insights and help Mrs. Peterson track what's happening in the progress? So that's where Reading Progress comes along. It's about improving student fluency through reading practice and educator insights. Now, the other thing is, this is in the US, there was a large scale study, and they said that reading fluency, especially in earlier grades, was about 30% lower because that entire process really falls down during a pandemic. A lot of students got farther behind. It's probably very similar in world languages or second languages where there's just not as much practice, doesn't happen as much. And so that fluency just gets hurt. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show a brief video that gives kind of a high-level overview of what Reading Progress is and how it works. I'll be showing a detailed demo, but this video will show things from the student perspective, the parent, the educator, and administrator. So we'll just hit play here. Oh.
Literacy is so important, and it's my job to help the kids grow in that and to see the value in that and to break the mindsets of like, oh, I'm just a bad reader, I don't like to read.
I don't have to worry about other people just looking at me and staring at me. It's just reading to myself, sort of, but on camera.
When I came across Reading Progress, I was able to say, hey, I've assigned a passage to each and every one of you guys. At your reading level, I want you to record you reading this passage. I was surprised that when the whole class came back, literally within 10 minutes, everyone was already done. Having that recording, I'm able to spend ample amount of time to analyze, and instead of using my instructional time, it allows me to use my planning time to figure out How do I intentionally approach every student? The whole class, this is what I'll teach them, and maybe this one specific individual student, I need to address with him or her this specific area. Reading progress has really motivated a lot of kids to work harder and kind of gave them ownership of their learning.
Well, as a mother and an educator, you know that the conference with the student is the most powerful piece. It's not necessarily them reading and recording, it's what you do with that reading and with that recording. And she's able to capitalize on that even faster now.
It probably helps me be a better reader because I can actually listen to myself. And if I did say a word wrong or something, I'd be able to say it better than next time because I know that I said it wrong.
Struggling readers, they struggle, so they avoid reading. And by avoiding reading, they struggle even more. And so it's been really cool to watch how my kids are, reading more at home. They're more excited to read in the classroom. They have their personal goals that they've made, not me. And so they're excited to work.
Coming from an administrative perspective is that this isn't just a classroom tool. Because we have so much access to data, that this is a powerful tool to change the learning trajectory of a building. But watching her grow in her reading, it's been a joy for me. I used to love reading as a child, and I wanted that for her.
Now that we use the app, I'm more confident. I'm less worried about it. I get worried about a lot of things, but reading now is one of the things that I'm not worried about anymore.
I want all of my students to get to the point where they know what it feels like to get lost in a book.
Favorite part is when I get to a really interesting part in the book and then I can't stop reading it, and it's really fun.
So hopefully that gives you a sense of how that works at a high level. And we're getting really great feedback as well from students. So we're hearing that students want to practice more, they enjoy it, they like seeing themselves read, they see the data. A lot of great feedback on different languages. So working in French, working in Spanish. And so that is great to hear. We're also seeing that accuracy scores are improving. And again, examples of where students are saying, oh, I want to do this again. When are we doing this again? And it changed their perception and the fear that they normally had about reading out loud. So we're hearing a lot of good feedback. And this is an example of a teacher saying, this teacher actually saw that reading accuracy went up at 7x the rate that it normally did for some of our students because they're practicing more, they're enjoying it. So we're getting a lot of really positive feedback there. We also have a case study at a larger district where it's sort of, I'm not going to go through all the details here, but the idea is we're seeing more time for teaching. Teachers get time back, better data and insights, and then allaying students' apprehension for reading out loud. Just like me as a sophomore, I didn't like reading out loud. Fourth graders don't like reading out loud. Adults don't like reading out loud. Adult literacy, try to get them to read out loud in front of anybody. And so this lets people read out loud and record themselves in privacy if they would like to do that. And like I mentioned, this is not just for early readers, middle schoolers, non-native speakers, foreign language, through higher ed, middle school fluency checks, dyslexia, special education. We're also seeing it being used with adult literacy. So lots of different places that the tool is being used. And we also developed it with a lot of top reading experts, reading scientists, hundreds and hundreds of educators, and we iterated and prototyped. So there's a lot of background there. And there's also a lot of research. So this tool is research-based design. And we got this award from a nonprofit because we had a lot of research that we publicly put out where we point to research that exists that we used to help build the tool. So just to know that Microsoft didn't invent all this stuff on our own. We tried to follow and work with some of the top experts. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into a demo to show more details on how it works. And actually, maybe before I do, are there any, I can't see the chat. If there's any questions, feel free, or someone, you can pass them along or put them in the chat. But I just want to make sure there weren't any questions before I moved on.
Hi, Mike. There is a question coming through now. The question is, does it work on mobile? Because the teacher students are mainly on mobile.
It does. It works on iOS and Android fully.
Is that a standalone native app, or is that a web-based app for those devices?
It's Teams. Teams has a native mobile app on iOS and Android. And so reading progress for the student, they open it up when they're in Teams, and it just works. They can record themselves. I got a screenshot of it in my slides later on what it looks like.
Oh, that's great, Mike. Thank you.
And it's also supported in over 100 languages and locales. So it's not just English. We've got a ton of languages. We actually have 15 new languages coming in like a week. I can't tell you what they are, but there's 15 new ones.
Awesome.
So we're always adding more. And I've got links for the list of all the languages in this deck. And this deck will be available to people later if you want to see it. I've got a link to it. So here I am in Teams. This is all free, built into Microsoft Teams. And I'm going to go down and create, and I'll choose an assignment. And so I can give it a title. So this is my, my reading progress demo. I'll give some instructions here. Please read this out loud. And the key part here is when you hit attach. And I'm going to go down here and choose reading progress. So this is a built-in special assignment type, and I choose reading progress. And this will launch the reading progress pane. And so I've got the ability to import a Word document. I can get it from OneDrive. I can upload it from my device. I can choose a passage in Teams. So sometimes you might put all your passages in one shared area. You can do that. You can pick it from a class notebook if you have that. We also have a sample library. It's English only, but we have a bunch of great sample content in here that you can pick and choose and use. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to upload a Word document from my device here. So I'm going to go here, and we'll go into my demo area and pull a, whoop, that's not where it is. It must be right here. So here's my geography file, and we're going to open that. So it pulls in that passage here, and you can enter things like reading level. So if you have a level set of readings, you can do that. You can choose the genre. You can choose a time limit, so a timed passage. You can set the sensitivity. So if you're wondering, well, how does it adjust to accents or younger readers or older readers? Pronunciation sensitivity, think about this as I call it the picky dial. How picky do you want the software to be? If you have younger readers, you want it to be less picky. Older readers might, more sensitive, more picky. And so you can set that either before or after the reading, requiring video, and then Reading Coach, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And Reading Coach is not out yet. It's actually being privately tested, but we announced it a couple months ago. But Reading Coach is our personalized reading piece. We'll ignore that for now. And I'm going to go here. I'm going to turn off my video because I don't want it to fight with the next part. So the other thing, I'm not going to demonstrate the full student reading experience because there's too much account switching. But what I will do is, if you want to see as a teacher, what's it going to look like when the student opens this up? Like, you're like, hey, what are they going to see? I can click student view, and this will show me what the student will see. So, hey, here's my camera. If I was a student, I've got my little microphone here. If I want to hit start, I do that. I would get a countdown as the student. And now I get the passage. So I could start reading. The study of Earth's landforms is called physical geography. I can even change the way it looks. So if I go here, it pauses the recording. And I can change the background. This is using some of our Immersive Reader technology if you want to do that. So you can change that around a little bit. But essentially, when you're done, you go down and you read. And I go down here and I choose, when I'm done reading, the student would hit I'm done, and it's recorded then. So here's my video. I could play it. I would get a countdown as the student. And now I get the passage. So there is my video. I could try it again if my teacher gave me multiple attempts. And when you're done, you would choose use this recording, and it would attach it to your assignment. So that's what the student experience looks like when they're going to be recording. On a mobile device, it's much smaller form, obviously, but the same thing happens. And I hit exit. I'm going to exit the student view to go back to where the teacher is looking at. So my assignment is ready. And at the top, I'm going to hit next. And it'll attach this to my assignment. So now this reading progress is attached. I could give it points. I'm not going to. This is just practice for my students. I can assign it to my whole class. And I'm going to click assign to distribute this assignment to all the kids in my class. So that is now distributed. Next, what I'm going to show is an example of a student who already did that reading out loud. So then you can see what we call the teacher experience. So I'm going to open up geography, and I'm going to go here, and we'll go to one that I've already looked at, Ashley here. So Ashley recorded her passage, that geography passage. And what I can do here is it has correct words per minute. So it's automatically calculated her reading speed. It's calculated her accuracy rate. It's flagged the mispronunciations, omissions, insertions, repetitions, and self-corrections. Now, I don't have to use auto detect. I can turn it off. So if I don't want the AI, I can turn that off and go into manual mode, but we're going to leave it with this auto detect on. And here's that pronunciation sensitivity. I can make it less sensitive or more sensitive. And that is that picky dial. How sensitive do you want the AI to be? Now I'm going to hit play and we'll watch her read.
The study of Earth's landforms is called physical geography.
So she said physical, and that was mispronounced. And I can click on words and I can manually say, that's correct, or this is mispronunciation, omission, etc. So I can manually do it, but in this case, it flagged it automatically. I'm going to go click on region and say jump to word. So Region, she mispronounced that. And I can jump to any part of the video. So here she said borders, and it looked like she omitted some words. So let's do jump to word.
Borders, freshwater sources also in.
So she skipped those words and then she self-corrected herself on sources. So all of this is done by our auto detection. And again, you can turn it off or you can turn it on. It's up to you. The other thing is I can return this to the student, and that student will get a report that they can look at themselves. So I can actually customize that report. I could give her the full report, the simplified report, or I can customize the report and choose exactly what that student will see. And so in this case now, let's say that I finished reviewing this as a teacher and I returned it. I say, great job. Let's see what Ashley is going to see when she gets this return. So here's Ashley, and I'm going to sign in as her. Here's Ashley's assignment, and I'm going to open this up. Let's see, where is it? It is, where's that assignment? Why can't I find it? I guess I thought I had a copy of Ashley's assignment, but I guess I don't. Oh, maybe it's under completed. Ah, there we go. Okay, here's her assignment. She's going to open it up. Now, this is what Ashley sees. And now she can go and watch herself. She can say, oh, I can jump to the word.
Physical geography.
Okay, I can jump down here. I can listen to how I was reading this one.
And
maybe she doesn't know how to actually say the word. She can say, listen to this word, and she can listen to that word be read out loud. So now Ashley can get feedback from the teacher. She can get this. And then as we add reading coach later, she'll be able to practice. That's not quite wired up yet, but reading coach will let her practice words as well. So that's how that flow works on the student side. And the last thing I'll show is insights. So we'll close this and we're going to switch over to insights, which is also built into class teams. So insights will give dashboards on the progress. So I'll maximize this. Here is the class view. I've got average words per minute, accuracy rate, and assignments. I can look at the accuracy rate for each assignment here. I'm going to scroll down and I can see average words per minute. So this shows the average words per minute for the class, the average accuracy rate, and this is for the entire class. And then a word cloud. This is the most mispronounced words in the class. So I can hover and say, oh, that was mispronounced 16 times. And then I can see all the students at the bottom and see their accuracy. If I filter on a single student like Alex Wilbur, now I can see his scores compared to the rest of the class. I can see Alex versus the class. So all of these insights are built in. They're just available for the teacher. They're automatically created. And I can see accuracy rate at the top, average words per minute. I can filter by reading level. I can filter by days. I've got a lot of great options for insights. So that's your tour of reading progress. And again, what I'm going to do is I'll just pause here and see if there's any questions that people have.
Hi, Mike. I had another couple of questions come through.
Yeah.
The first one is from Sarah, and I think she is asking in relation to the library of text that you have, are there any plans to expand beyond English texts?
Not at this time, because it's really complicated and expensive to get licensed content across lots of languages into these content libraries. We work closely with the nonprofit in the US, but again, it's not easy. And so we currently don't have plans, but it's too hard.
Okay, no worries.
Licensing content is not an easy process, unfortunately.
Yeah. And is it possible for teachers to add their own content then maybe?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's where I don't know if you saw where you can put all your content into a shared Teams area for your school, and then everyone can pick from that shared area. For example.
Sorry, you covered that in the beginning of the presentation, right?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. I had another question from Justin. He says he noticed there was a choice between video and audio, and he's wondering why do you have video? What's the benefit of having video there?
Sorry, one second. I was trying to find that example of the content drop. I guess I don't have a picture in here. I thought I had a picture on a slide. So a couple things. A lot of educators have said audio, they don't feel as engaged and sort of see the student when they're doing this, because it's not the most fun process. So being able to watch the student is really powerful and engaging for the teacher. They can also watch how the mouth is moving. You can actually make the video bigger. So if you want to watch for certain reading patterns, also the students love it. Students have mostly never seen themselves read. They've never heard themselves read. And so it's one of those things where actually teachers and students both enjoy it.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question from Justin. He says, are we able to see multiple attempts of the same passage by the same student?
No, we only had the student chooses which of the attempts they want to upload. We don't have multiples of those.
So the student might make 3 attempts and choose the best one to send to the teacher.
Yeah, and we don't let them pick from 3. It's like they make an attempt. If they don't like it, they start over and the old one's deleted and they do the next one.
Got it. Okay.
And the teacher can set the number of attempts. Like the teacher can set it to unlimited or like 5 attempts, or they can set the limit.
So if you're testing your students and you want them to only have one chance to do the reading, that's possible.
Yep.
Okay.
And you can time it too. You could say you only get 2 minutes, for example.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Mike. That's all the questions we have for now.
Okay, great. Okay, well, then now we're going to get to all the latest and greatest stuff that we announced it over a month ago, but we've actually shipped some of it, but also we're in the process of testing some of this privately. So I'm going to play another video that's going to show reading progress updates and something called Reading Coach.
Helping kids learn how to read is one of the most challenging topics that an educator has on their plates. I started using Reading Progress in the fall of last year. And what's nice is not only can we have more students being assessed at the same time, but the students themselves want to read more. They love being able to read out loud. They love knowing that they're on camera. They love being able to watch themselves. They are asking for more opportunities for Reading Progress assignments, taking ownership of their learning. And all of the tools in Reading Progress really let them do that.
The Atomos pair and all the gnats.
These words were the most challenging for you. Select any word to tackle them again. At, mus, fear.
Atmosphere.
You are making your brain stronger. Nice work.
Reading Coach is truly a dream come true for teachers. I can have a class of 30 students all getting feedback and individualized instruction, and now they know how to read a word that they were struggled with.
They get almost all of the water they need from their flexible omnivorous diet.
One of the things that I love about Insights is that I can just scroll right down and it shows me at a glance the words that students were struggling with. And I'm able to see student by student what their needs are, and I can pull them from small group instruction based on what they need. When I see the future of reading progress with Reading Coach, I really see how the students are going to respond. They want to do better. They want to improve upon their last attempt when usually they don't have that opportunity. The fact that they can practice reading out loud in a safe space and build their confidence is one of the best things about Reading Progress.
Okay, so that is Reading Coach and Reading Progress. So Reading Coach, again, is being actively tested right now with hundreds and hundreds of teachers and classes. So what will happen is you will be able to, let me turn on a laser pointer. Right here, you'll be able to turn on Reading Coach for an assignment. And if you turn that on, that'll mean when the student is done reading, that Reading Coach will pop up. You'll be able to customize it too. So you can see here, the teacher can customize which reading supports will be given and when to show the tools, what type of voice. So the teacher can customize that. And this coach will pop up when the student is going to upload that video. So when they finish reading and they choose to upload the video, we're going to analyze their specific audio and then pop up the words that were most challenging, meaning what was the most mispronounced words or the words that they skipped. And we'll give them 5 practice words. And I can click here and drill in on one, and it'll have it opened up. And I can do things like stretch the word. I can hear it out loud. If I click the microphone, I can practice reading that word, and the student will get real-time feedback on how they're pronouncing that word. And then they can go on to the next word and sort of get independent practice. And then when they're done, the teacher review experience, we're going to add this new practiced word so the teacher can get a sense of how many words were practiced by the student. And if they click on that, this will pop up and they can see, oh, they made this number of attempts. These were the tools that they used. So the teacher can choose to drill in and get more information if they want. It's not required. And then even the student will get coach practice. So this is nice when we return that passage. So little Scarlett here, the teacher returned her assignment, and it'll also show which words to remind her, oh, here's the words you practiced, here's how you did. And Scarlett can click on any word in this passage and get practice with the coach. So if she wants to practice landforms, she's like, oh, I mispronounced that. She can click on that word and she'll have the ability to launch the Reading Coach right there, and it'll go into that Reading Coach mode. So that's Reading Coach in Teams. We're also bringing Reading Coach to Immersive Reader. Some people have said, hey, this is great, but like, what if my student doesn't want to use Teams, or what if they want to practice at home without an assignment? So we're also bringing Reading Coach into Immersive Reader. So whether it's OneNote or Word or Teams or Flipgrid or Forms, then they can use their own text. So whatever text you want, you hit Immersive Reader, you'll be able to go over to Reading Coach on the right-hand side under Reading Preferences, for those of you familiar with Immersive Reader. And then you'll be able to say, okay, practice reading. And you start reading, you get a countdown. I can now be reading out loud and whatever text I want, anything that student wants, practicing at home or at school. And when they hit stop, they'll get a lightweight reading report. So it's not the full reading progress, but we'll show, here's your accuracy, here's your words per minute, here's the time spent reading. And you can click on practice words and that Reading Coach will pop up, and you'll get that same experience where you can practice reading and getting real-time feedback right from the Immersive Reader. So that is coming in very late summer, maybe early fall. It's not going to be available for a few months, but we are actively planning and working on it now. So yeah, you get the same Reading Coach. And then a few other updates. This is rolled out right now this week, the mobile recording. So you asked about, we do audio, we've done audio, but now you can have mobile video recording by the students and mobile reading. So that's all out, iOS, Android, phone, tablet, all that. We've added some improvements to Insights, where we've had the ability to create a challenge assignment. So I can go to that word cloud at the bottom right here. So I've already had the word cloud. Now there's this new button. If I click create challenge assignment, it'll take the top 10 words and automatically create a new assignment and inject them right into that assignment. And then the teacher, so a big time saver for the teacher, and they can just hit next. Insights Premium, this is something that allows you to get data and dashboards across your entire school system, your school district, multiple schools, classes. This is a paid offering. So normally you get insights for free in an individual class, but if you want to get it across, Ministry of Education or a whole school district, you can see here there's different schools and all this is broken out. This is Insights Premium is our paid offering. As I mentioned, we now have we added 67 new ones. We're over 100 languages and locales, and we're adding 15 more in a week. So we've added a bunch. And then coming in the summer, this is super cool. And this might be really interesting for second language learners or people teaching foreign languages, is reading with expression. And so we'll be able to, we have a new set of AI that can detect reading with monotone. If you skip punctuation, it's very common to ignore punctuation or not even see it sometimes. Sometimes people pause while they're reading, like they get stuck. So we'll be able to flag things like pauses, or you skipped a period or skipped a comma. And so then you'll be able to, similar like you saw with the accuracy, I'll be able to click on any word. I can flag some of these things. So reading with expression is coming later in the summer. And then phonics rules. This might be really interesting for people teaching English, because this is going to be English only to start. Is we're going to be able to analyze all the different phonemes and phonics rules patterns and group them together and have dashboards that allow teachers to highlight different phonics rules in English, like bat versus bait or light versus lit. There's all these different crazy phonics rules in English. If you're an English teacher, you'll know that. And I'll be able to even say, create challenge assignment, and it'll generate a set of words based on the phonics rules that I selected just there. So it's pretty high tech. It's quite cool. We're very excited about that one. And if you're into reading and phonics, you're going to love this feature. So here's the summary of all the things about what's coming when. A bunch of things are available today. There's a bunch more coming this late spring and early summer. And then later this summer is going to be Reading Coach and Immersive Reader. So a bunch of stuff, a bunch of links, we've got interactive guides, we've got end-to-end demos, got videos, got one-pager PDFs, tons of links. And so I'll just leave this slide up and we can answer some more questions. This has the link to the entire deck today. So you can share those links with your friends and neighbors, share it with your schools, share it with your colleagues. Feel free to reach out to me on email or Twitter, or I've got a YouTube channel. I have a lot of the demos of the things you saw today and more. So hopefully you learned a lot today, and hopefully you're going to try this out. I'd love to hear questions or feedback. And that's all I got for today.
Hi, Mike. Thanks. That's absolutely amazing and really, really interesting and fascinating and wonderful products. And great pedagogical value, I think, across all different kinds of contexts there. We have a couple more questions coming in here. I'm just going to read these questions out. So first question is about Japanese. So specifically, is there Japanese language? Yeah, that's the question.
There is.
Yep. And does it work? I think, does it work because Japanese doesn't have spaces between words? So in terms of tokenizing the text, do you know how that works? Does it insert spaces between words, or how does that work?
That is a very good question. Off the top of my head, I don't know exactly. I haven't seen a Japanese passage in Reading Progress, but I do know we support it. And I do know we've done work for other languages that have characters such as that. But I don't know off the top of my head, unfortunately.
Okay. I guess we can experiment with that ourselves and find out for ourselves. Yeah. I have a question from Sarah. Sarah's asking, how is the prosody chosen for correctness? She points out that Spanish prosody is not the same as English. I guess that's intonation, is it? Is that connected to intonation, maybe?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I would say right now we're doing prosody for English. We haven't moved to Spanish yet, but what we have is we do a bunch of training of our models, and we have sort of AI that trains our models, but then we have human listeners and human speakers sort of compare what the AI does versus, almost like real people say like, no, that's not good, or oh, that's right, or oh, that's reasonable. So we actually go through and have a whole process. It takes a while, but the idea is we sort of tune the models per language and per locale. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So yeah, the way the English works will be different than Spanish for like monotone or things like that, or even punctuation depending on the language.
Okay, hopefully that answers Sarah's question. And I have a question from Elton, who's asking, in your experience, how much teacher training time is required to make someone competent in using reading progress?
Wow, I don't know if there's a standard answer. I would say, I think watching a good 15-minute demo video end to end is definitely recommend that. And then I think it takes a little time of just how old are your students, what type of passages do you want to do. It also depends. I would say we recommend don't use it as like an official state record assessment tool, right? It's really meant to be letting teachers speed up the ability to gather data and let students practice and get that flywheel going. And so, we often say like, don't expect perfection, because a lot of, humans doing this aren't perfect either. Think about the teachers who have to sit there and stay completely focused and listen to a student read, which it's very hard to do. And if you get distracted, you can't tell the student, hey, can you just rewind yourself by 20 seconds and do that all over again? Like, you just can't do that.
Right.
Well, Mike, turns out with video, you can just rewind, go back. And so also, if you're teaching world language, again, I think, what are you doing today? My guess is you're only listening in class, maybe, because it's just hard and time consuming to get this type of data. And so we think, especially for world language, it just gives you a whole new way to quickly capture data and get a touch point, right? Like, every teacher doesn't need to watch every single video ever recorded by every student in the class ever. It could just be touch points and sort of skipping around and getting a sense of how things are going and drilling in on certain data. So it's going to depend on sort of the needs of the educators, but we've had a lot of people pick it up pretty quickly. And if you think about the ultimate time you could save or scenarios that you can't do today because it's impossible. Or like
one thing that I did want to add real quick, Mike and Paul, sorry to interrupt you there. As a teacher who did start using reading progress just last semester, I'm a teacher in Japan. It does take a little bit of work, but once the students get used to it, then it's one of those things they know exactly what to do. And one thing to keep in mind is to make sure that they click on allow the video and allow the microphone, because that's one of the big things that I found was difficult with these students. They would just immediately click on block. So you'd have to kind of go in and work around with them to make sure that they allow the.
We're actually working on that. Thank you for calling it out. That's actually an issue we're working to make easier, because I won't go into the details, but yes, I agree with exactly what you just said. We're talking about that in our engineering team right now.
But yeah, once they get used to it, if you use it and you make sure that they do it at home, so if they all do it in class together, it's probably going to pick up feedback around the room. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is send it as homework. And then once they come into the classroom, then you can give them the feedback and show them how they can use that feedback, just like what Mike was showing in his presentation there, and have them work on the words or listen to the words that they were mispronouncing or omitting, and then give them another one, and they can get better and better as they go. And so as a teacher, it gets easier as well as you use it more throughout the semester or throughout the year.
Yeah.
Yep. A couple more questions coming in here. Justin is pointing out that if you were grading everything manually, it would take some time to do the whole class. And he's curious, with the AI assistant, are most teachers, in your experience, satisfied with that AI grading of the reading?
I'm not going to say like blanket yes, everyone says it's perfect. I would say there are a lot of teachers who think it is great and they love it. And there's some teachers who say, yeah, it's really good in some cases. Sometimes what's nice is you can adjust that picky dial on a per student basis. So some teachers are like, well, I have a student with a severe accent, so I have to like change the sensitivity for certain students and whatnot. But in general, we found that teachers are pretty happy with it. And in many cases, they're happier than they thought they would be, which is interesting because I think maybe they have lower expectations just based on, what they think is possible. But a lot of teachers find that they like it.
I'm curious about that sensitivity dial because I guess you have your AI looks at a native speaker model and then compares the attempt to that model, and then if you dial down the sensitivity, the further away from the model the student is, it doesn't matter if they're not quite as close to the model as they should be. Is that roughly correct?
Yeah, exactly. They call them confidence intervals. So it's like default is set to a certain confidence interval. And if you make the picky dial less sensitive, then it basically says, we'll give you a wider error range in your confidence interval before we'll mark it as wrong. And then if you make it more picky, like I like to joke, my sophomore French teacher would probably crank that picky dial all the way up because he was a jerk. But then we're going to be more picky and say like, no, you've got to be exact before,
I think French and Spanish teachers tend to be more demanding on pronunciation, whereas English now, the trend is towards comprehensibility and not native speaker level pronunciation. That's definitely the trend in Japan anyway. Like English as a lingua franca, you're not trying to imitate native speakers, you're just trying to speak in a comprehensible way.
Yeah.
So another couple of questions coming in here. Sarah is interested in the relationship between Reading Coach and Flipgrid, and she's asking you how that will work.
Oh, well, what's nice is if you're asking about Immersive Reader and Reading Coach, so my team actually built.
I was just really asking, will they have to upload a script so it can compare their pronunciations? Like or is it just going to use the same thing that Flipgrid uses right now for closed captions to understand them? I just want to know how that's going to be integrated.
So are you talking, just so I understand what you're asking, are you saying, well, here, let me say one thing and then I'll re-ask the question. So we're building Reading Coach into Immersive Reader. And because Immersive Reader is part of Flipgrid, if you launch the Immersive Reader on Flipgrid content, you'll be able to practice reading it out loud with Reading Coach and actually get coaching. That's going to come out. So because Immersive Reader is in Flipgrid, as a bonus, it'll get Reading Coach just for free.
I see. Okay.
Is that what you were asking, or were you asking something else?
Yes. No, I understand now. Yes.
Okay.
So Reading Coach is part of Immersive Reader and Immersive Reader is part of Flipgrid. Is that correct?
Yeah, will be. I mean, Reading Coach is not there yet, but Immersive Reader is in Word for the web. It's in OneNote. It's in Flipgrid. It's in Forms. It's in Teams. It's in a bunch of places. So all those Microsoft places, or at least most of them, where Immersive Reader is today, we'll be adding Reading Coach just as a bonus. It'll just show up by the end of summer.
That's great. That's great.
So like if you're using OneNote as a student and you paste in your favorite passage or something, you could just launch Immersive Reader, put on Reading Coach and practice reading that passage out loud yourself and get your own feedback.